they probably aren't going to finish above 500, which would be a first for head coach Mike Tomlin, who just so happens to be who's going to be joining us today on the hot seat. Mr. Mike Tomlin, welcome to the show, brother. Good to see you. Zach, talking about Mike Tomlin here, man. I know that I've been somebody that's kind of gone to war for Mike Tomlin over this past couple of weeks because some people were talking bad about him early in the year, saying he's the one that needs to go. I was Team Canada all the way. And last night was the first time that I watched this guy, and it didn't look like the dominant Mike Tomlin to me. He looked a little bit confused to me. He was taking chances that I felt like were unnecessary. They're going deep balls on 3rd and 2, 4th and 2, game on the line. Like, is it starting to get to that point where we need to talk about moving on from Mike Tomlin?
After the last 2 weeks, the way this season has gone, really make you reflect back. I'm a big Mike Tomlin fan. I love Mike Tomlin. He's been a great figurehead of the Steelers organization for many years now. But that being said, as he says, the standard is the standard. And for the last 6 years, the standard has been mediocre seasons and no playoff wins. And I realize that there's been quarterback problems, but for a few of those seasons, you still had Big Ben. You still had better playmakers, better, players across the board, kind of the better roster than you have now, and you still had no playoff success. You can give him a little bit of credit for the years that Bim's fallen off and for the recent seasons trying to figure out the quarterback situation, but that's ultimately not an excuse after so many years have passed. The Steelers have issues. They seem like they have locker room problems kind of bubbling up again, which has been kind of a recurring thing. And I give Tomlin credit for being able to, keep the Antonio Brown antics and some of the things with the Killer Bees in check. But there's clearly problems. Whether Tomlin refuses to make changes to the staff and to the system, or if, it's out of his hands, I don't know. I don't know the inner workings of the organization, but things need to change. And if they don't, if he refuses to make changes and we have another season like this in 2024, I think you have to actually consider moving on from Tomlin. And part of me thinks that after everything that's happened, he might want a fresh start too.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to see Mike Tomlin go because I think if he hits the market, he does instantly become the hottest coach on the market to grab over anybody else anywhere. Like, I'd love to see him go be the Brandon Staley replacement. I'd love to see him replace Mike McCarthy. Now, that wouldn't be a spot for him because he does things his way, but there's some people that are talking and they think that he should maybe leave this job and go into a defensive coordinator kind of role. I don't see that happening just because he's been a head coach for so long, but let me just throw one at you. What about Mike Tomlin, defensive coordinator in Buffalo?
I would say no. I can't see Tomlin ever being hired as anything other than a head coach at this point in his career. And I think he's too well respected throughout the NFL for that to happen unless he himself wants that. I personally, Tomlin has gained enough credit with me, with the Steelers organization, with the fan base, that he deserves maybe one more year.
Maybe.
Unfortunately, here's the thing. Unfortunately, with Canada gone, we were going to get to see Pickett finish the season, figure out if he's the guy or not going into 2024, and then make adjustments from there. But now with the injury and the surgery, we're not going to get to see Pickett really at all the rest of the season, maybe a little right at the end. But it kind of ruined that opportunity for us. As big a Tomlin fan as I am, I would give him another shot. But if we see another season like we've seen these last 6, remember we haven't made the playoffs, 7, since 2016.
Crazy.
Then you got to move on. You just have to. And the Steelers are not an organization that fires coaches, but at some point you have to make changes.
I'm with you there, man. And I do want to ask you one more thing about Tom before we move on here to the Green Bay Packers, all you Packers fans looking at those playoff hopes. But do you think there's any other coach in the league that could have a better record than he does with this team right now based on what's happened? Kenny going down, all the Matt Canada problems, Pat Freiermuth being hurt, Najee Harris not even being the RB1 anymore. Like, is there anyone that could have came in and did his job better than him up to this point?
I think the upper echelon of coaches in the league could, and a large part of that is because I don't think, or I should say, I think most of those coaches are offensive minded, and the biggest problem this year has been the offense. You get a little more production out of that miserable offense that we had for the whole first, half or more of the season with Canada, and the Steelers look much better. The defense has played well enough throughout the season, sometimes really well, sometimes not so great, but has played well enough to get them to this point. but you're not going to win football games if your offense can't move the ball, can't score points. You get an interception last night that almost gets housed for a pick six, and when he doesn't get into the end zone, even though you're in the red zone, all Steelers fans think is we're going to get a field goal or nothing out of this drive, most likely.
Yep.
It's that
And
bad.
that's a problem.
It's that bad. So I think other coaches could have come in and done as good or a better job, but that list of coaches is on the short side.
Coach Mike Tomlin, I know you and we go to bat for him, but I can understand the frustrations for everybody else around the league saying, okay, when is it time? This guy doesn't make the playoffs. He's not going to bring us a ring, blah, blah, blah. But guys, I don't know. I'm going to stand on the fact that I do believe that there's no way Mike Tomlin won't get a job instantaneously as a head coach if he gets let go from here. So we will see what happens. He's absolutely on the hot seat right now, but no time to pull the trigger yet.